Gela Kesla was Mumbul Ella, La Kustli Ala Tahwa, Gahano, La Kus Outnaguskna.
Kanada läänerannikul Victoria saare põhjaosas elavate Kwakiutli indiaanlaste vanu kombeid tutvustav grupp Kwakiutli esitas mõningaid pühasid tseremooniaid, mida nad viivad läbi oma traditsioonilistel kinkimispidustustel. Kwakwala keeles tähistab neid pidustusi sõna potlatch. Põhja-Ameerika pärismaalased jagasid meiega oma muret Kwakwala keele ja Kwakiutli rahva väljasuremisohu pärast, aga samuti rõõme, tutvustades oma iidset kultuuri ja kuidas nad seda säilitada ning taas õitsele puhuda üritavad.
We live in a very modern society and we all have jobs and families and the same responsibilities that I think everyone else has. But I think we also pride ourselves and carry that responsibility that we do in fact have a history and that we have to acknowledge it and carry it with us. And certainly, I mean, we're preparing currently as a family. I mean, Uncle Cal and Auntie Marie are going to be having a feast in October, for example, whereby they're going to invite many of the other families and the other nations that live around us to gather in our gyutsi, in our big house, to name their newest granddaughter to the family. You know, that is one example, I think, of how our culture still exists.
I think as Indigenous or even Kwakiutli people, we're one of the most highly researched and written about of the Northern American Indigenous peoples, and we have someone that now has the gift of being able to tell our story from our perspective, from our learning life experience.
In some of the songs, like in the Ladies Professional, they follow the movements of the song, what the song's saying.
And you're exactly right. I mean, all of the movements have purpose, and all of the movements are connected not only to the Kwakwala language verses in the song, but they're an expression of some of the traditional elements of spirituality and the healing powers that are exemplified in the ladies' dance through Hayali Kilam Nukwasa. I am the great tamer of the Hamatsa, because that Hilik Akste, that particular song belonged to Calvin's grandmother. And so it makes reference to her ability to tame and to heal that Hamatsa dancer. Some of our shamans are medicine men. When they were working on you, if they were, not similar to something you'd see from a Western doctor, but they would spit, different concoctions and medicines upon you and blow that out through their teeth. So that's what that lyric makes reference to. So all of those lyrics are just examples of the deeper meaning that we don't often get a chance to express, when we're limited to a half-hour interview or a 1-hour dance performance.
There's different reasons to dance. Ceremonies, all important milestones or aspects of life are acknowledged. When a girl becomes a young lady, that's a very important moment in her life, and there's songs and dances for that particular point in a young woman's life when she becomes a young woman. The Hamatsa is often given to young men.
And so in traditional times, those young men would go out into the forest, and the initiation ceremony would be as long as 4 months whereby they would be on the land. And so in a spiritual context, they have disappeared. They've been abducted by that cannibal spirit, Kwakiutli, at the north end of the world. And so when we capture them, so when they return to that ceremony, that potlatch or pasa, that is also a very, very old tradition and an old custom. But there is also a big potlatch coming up in October as well, and our relatives, the Hendersons, are potlatching in September. So what would have taken months in old times is now limited to 2 days often. It takes months to prepare and to gather enough goods and to save up money to feed people for that amount of time, because you may have 1,500 people there. But we can do it on a weekend now because we all have to go to work on Monday, So we don't walk into our big house and seat ourselves the same way we would in a theater. They actually sit separately. So the hamatsas might be seated in one part of the house because of their rank, because of their privilege. The chiefs would be seated at the front of the house. People that are of nobility and are noble women actually surround the floor, almost as a buffer. They're the knowledge keepers, and so they're going to make sure that everything goes accordingly. Yeah, so those are all elements that are still known to our people.
Feast in 2004. My older son Daniel was about a year old. I named him after my late father, so I thought it'd be appropriate that he get my father's Indian name. And it's not just a matter of sitting at, let's say, the breakfast table and say, okay, son, I'm going to give you this name now. What validates that transaction is you invite your chiefs, you invite your elders, you invite your nation to bear witness to this. And that's what validates that transaction, the transference of names, the transference of titles. So that's where the ceremony plays a very important role. Like Caleb said, we've got a foot in two worlds now. We have to deal with the everyday reality of living a modern life. But that's not to say you can't still hold on to what grounds you to our beginning. The matriarch of our chief's family, that would have been our great-great-great-grandmother, her name was Anislaga Mary Ebbets.
Yeah.
So Anislaga wove a blanket for each one of her 11 children, including some of her grandchildren. And she brought that over as part of her marriage dowry when she married into the family. So all the descendants of that lady from the time she married into the family till the end of time have the right to wear this specific treasure. This is a painted chilkat blanket my sister did, but they were traditionally woven out of mountain goat wool and cedar bark. It takes about a year to weave one blanket. And from what I understand, it's one of the highest disciplines of hand weaving in the entire world, because it's one of the only ones that can make a complete circle. There are 22 or 23 chilkat weavers in the world today. For example, like this blanket, it tells one specific story of one specific lady and one specific bloodline.
Because we are called the potlatch people, so we give and we don't stop giving. So when we as women dance, we're always told to turn left because you go into the spirit world of our ancestors. And we listen to the songs, and the songs tell us what to do with our hand movements. And each tribe has their own songs, so you just listen to the words. And when the song is over, as women go back in, we turn around again, turn left again to go back into to turn back into.
this particular design was an original design, and it's it just is an expression of our continuing culture. So we've got our traditional form, but he did this 6 years ago for when Corina Kwakiutli is one of her Kwakwala names, when her and I married. And so Muskamzi, which is a name that I received from Calvin's eldest brother, it comes from our great-grandmother. It makes reference to 4 whales piled on top of each other. So that's the Kwakwala name that I carry. The Chilkat face that is most prominent on the Chilkat blankets. It's the central figure, so again, it speaks to our family and it represents that history. And so Uncle Cal used that face to represent Corrine in our relationship as the foundation, as the mother, as the woman of power that gives life to all things. And our 3 daughters, Natalia, Kiara, and Mariah, we had identical twins first. And the twins come from the salmon spirits. They're a sign of abundance. And so he represented them in the form of salmon eggs, at the beginning of life, and our 2 families coming together.
Population is like 735, just like I could only speak for specifically our nation. And 75% of every population lives off reserve. So you look at that and, in comparison, it's like we actually only have like 305 and 122 homes. So that's kind of where our populations are at right now. So in neighboring neighborhoods and districts and up and down the island, like we're not just isolated into one area.
I find the song and the speaking language in itself are two separate things, because there are some words in songs that cannot be translated into English. As with everyday Kwakwala, we have different dialects. Like if I was to Kwakwala fluently to Corrine, then she would know that where I'm from. I remember doing a linguistic thing a few years ago, and there was a few women from each tribe, and everyone knew exactly where they were from, just by how we constructed our sentences. And one of the elders just mentioned this to me about a year ago, that the language is the most important thing within our culture. You are nothing without your language. So it's so important for this generation and the generation to come to undertake that and to keep that very much alive, not just by memorization with song, but to use the language